Here's a question where we're asked to find the domain of this function. So the domain are all the allowable x's. So you can say it's all the allowable x's as long as, and then you got to give us something for that. I think the question also says they wanted an interval notation. This would be set notation. We'll maybe give both. So to find the domain for this function, it all depends on the denominator because the denominator cannot be 0 on a fraction. So we want to find all the numbers of x that'll make the bottom 0 and then say the domain is everything except those numbers. So let's, to do that, what we'll do is we'll factor this denominator. So I'll factor an x out and I'm left with x plus 4. So it looks like there's two numbers that I can plug in here where I can make the denominator 0. What would be the first one? 0. Good. And what would be that number there to plug in there? Hopefully you're saying minus 4. So those are the two numbers that x cannot be. So x can be anything as long as x is not 0 and as long as x is not equal to negative 4. So that would sort of be the set notation. For interval notation, I like to do interval notation with a number line, just so I can see what intervals I'm using. So 0 is a point where it can't be, and negative 4 is another point that it can't be. So if I look at how far the number line extends, I have an interval that goes up to here, but it can't include 4. And then I have another interval in between negative 4 and 0 that'll work, but it can't be 0. And then from 0 on upward forever is another interval. So what I have to do is identify this interval, and this interval. So this first one will be, I'll start at negative infinity. Negative infinity always has a curly bracket around it, comma, and then I can go all the way up to negative 4. Now, if I don't want to include negative 4, I put a curly bracket there. If it was one that I wanted to include negative 4, I'd put a square bracket, but I don't want that one. Okay, so that's that interval. And then I have an interval, this interval here. Let's make that red. So this interval here will be all the way from negative 4 up to 0, not including either of those. And then the final interval will be from 0 upward forever. So it'll be 0 upward forever would be infinity. Now to say that your domain is all of that stuff, then you put these little u's in between each one, and that stands for the union. So your domain is all of this, and all of this, and all of that. Hopefully that helps you with the domain of a rational function.